On Thursday, Ontarians will head to the polls, and it's been a tumultuous few days leading up to this election. First, Premier Kathleen Wynne's shocking announcement to concede. Wynne now urging voters not to let a majority NDP government or a progressive Conservative government come into power.
Things are going well in Ontario. Not everyone is sharing in that, and so we know that there's more that needs to be done. But what I'm saying is that momentum can't be put at risk, and there are real risks associated with either the NDP or Doug Ford.
To bring you up to speed on today, now PC leader Doug Ford being sued for millions of dollars by his brother's widow. All for this and more, we're joined by the Globe and Mail's Laura Stone. She's joining us from Ottawa this morning. We should mention, Laura, good morning to you. Doug Ford, of course, has released a statement.
Good morning.
It reads in part, Renata's lawyers have been clear to us throughout this campaign that either we hand over money or they would go public with these false claims. So that's where it sits as of Monday morning. We now just have 2 days to go before final voting. Where's this election headed?
Well, this hasn't been a boring campaign,
No.
Anne-Marie. And of course, in the past week, there's been such an influx of news and developments. Right now, I mean, with Kathleen Wynne's admission that she's not going to win, it's a two-way race between the NDP and the PCs. Most polls have put them neck and neck, although I've seen some this morning that show the PCs with a slight lead. So it's difficult to say whether this new Doug Ford news, whether this development will impact his supporters. He's been playing the card of everyone's against us. So this is probably the tune that he'll continue to play in these last final days. There was limited availability on his campaign yesterday, but we're expected to hear more from him today. With Kathleen Wynne's announcement, she's basically appealing to hardcore Liberal voters to tell them not to abandon the party, even though it's obvious at this point that the Liberals are just not going to win.
Well, if we do see an NDP majority government or a PC majority government come into power, what will those implications be on a national level?
Well, we know the federal party leaders are watching this race closely, although only NDP leader Jagmeet Singh, who doesn't have a seat in Parliament, has been campaigning with Andrea Horwath in Ontario. This is huge. This is huge for either the Conservatives or the NDP, who are going to be watching closely, especially in the Toronto area, which has typically been a very important region for who forms government federally in the next election. If the NDP takes this, it's going to be a very good sign for Jagmeet Singh that he might be able to make some inroads in the Toronto area. And of course, Andrew Scheer would love to kind of ride Ford's coattails if Doug Ford does take this as well. In terms of Justin Trudeau, I would suspect, much prefer to work with an NDP government, which is much more progressive, which would support the federal carbon tax and other initiatives on the environment and other progressive measures. But he could also use Doug Ford as a foil if Doug Ford takes this. So certainly it's going to have major implications for the parties in the next election.
All right, we just talked about the political turmoil in Ontario. Let's move quickly on to Quebec. Martine Ouellette, leader of the Bloc Québécois party, resigning after party members rejected her leadership. That happened in a confidence vote on the weekend. So what does this mean for the future of that party?
Well, I think a lot of Quebecers are thinking that if Martine Ouellette actually stayed as leader of the party, that would spell the demise of the Bloc Québécois. I think they're thinking that with her departure, there's going to be at least a chance that they can rebuild. Although, of course, we saw that the 7 Bloc members out of 10 in Ottawa have left the party. Whether they would return under a different leader is unknown. So this is going to open up a big opportunity for the other federal parties, including the federal Conservative. Andrew Scheer has been traveling across Quebec quite a bit, trying to attract former Bloc supporters. So we could see his stock rise in the province. But it's also an anti-pipeline party. So some of those members could gravitate towards the NDP, but Jagmeet Singh has struggled in the province as well. So we're not sure if the Bloc will exist in the next election, but this at least gives them a chance to rebuild what their message is going into 2019.
Hey, Laura, really quickly, looking ahead to the G7 summit happening this weekend, there were 5 key points on the agenda: investing in growth, preparing for jobs, also women's empowerment and the environment. However, since that agenda was set up, we have had the tariffs put in place. We've had this discourse back and forth between Chrystia Freeland, between the Prime Minister and the U.S. President Donald Trump. Will that discourse dominate this summit?
I think the tariffs and the opposition to what Donald Trump is doing on trade, not just in Canada, but around the world, is going to dominate the discussion. This is a chance for the leaders to get Donald Trump in a room and express their displeasure with what his administration is doing. And we know that Canada has delayed the imposition of the tariffs until July 1st. So potentially there's a little bit of hope that he might slide back, that Trump might not actually impose those or cancel the tariffs against Canada. But I'm not sure if that's going to happen. I think certainly some other issues such as North Korea and Iran are going to be a big part of the agenda as well. But this is definitely a chance for the leaders to tell Donald Trump this is not okay.
All right, Laura, thanks so much.
Thank you.